So, we got a matchup between Banana Steve and ScionVyse today. Both very strong runners in their own rights. Banana Steve does have a higher PB, but considering the volatility of the route that's going to be performed today by both runners, there is genuinely not any prediction I can make right now. All I can say is, I know these runners are going to give their best efforts, and that's all that I can really ask for, pretty much. We're gonna see the runners preparing to start the match, and also we'll be able to take a look at just whoever filters in to watch this race. Again, this is the loser side of the bracket. If I take a look here, the winner side is all completed already, where their winner side is waiting for grand finals at the moment. Whereas the losers bracket is still within round 3 because of some scheduling delays, but that is also sort of it's typical, especially of an online event like this globally. We've got 3 matches that still have to be played in round 3. We have Destructor versus Jaina, which will happen very early morning, I believe, on Monday at like 3 a.m. Eastern time, closer to the afternoon in France, which is where Destructor is from. Gala versus Arcole, or Ross. I'm not sure when that's being done. And then Steve versus Scion, which is now. The winner of this match will go on to face the winner between Gala and Ross. Whoever wins that will go on to see Oopla. And the race has begun. Good luck, racers. Looks like there's a bit of some desync here, so we'll be looking for some assistance on synchronizing these VODs. I shipped over that request to the volunteers or whoever is handling the VOD sync. Oh, it looks like the VODs are synced. Would you look at that? And we're already off. Steve slightly behind because of loading. We'll wait until Corpius to unsync or to pick the correct ahead audio source, but Scion is slightly ahead just due to some loads, 2 seconds ahead. No big deal. And let's see how this one goes down. Steve has caught up just on mashing, it seems like, on the Atom, which is interesting. So yeah, now they're basically neck and neck. Would you look at that? Already from the side of Steve, you can see that there's just a little bit of better movement just in general. Scion using an extraneous melee there to defeat the Goomba. Melees like those are really only good to skip ledges that you would have otherwise touched as you fall past them. Both runners making quick work of the Elaine skip pseudo wave. Meanwhile, Banana Steve sets up the angle by aiming towards it and then goes into his reps. I believe that's a sign of the right stick rebind method that allows you to move with the left stick while keeping the shot angle with the right stick. So very well done from Steve. Scion falling maybe 5 or so seconds behind at the moment. And Steve gets headlock to start the game. Oh no, but Steve just missed 4 missiles. He can no longer miss a missile. If he misses even 1, he loses all the benefits of headlock. Oh, he missed the last one! Oh, this race, Steve cannot be happy with that. So, when you transition into the phase 2 of Corpius, when phase 1 is spitting acid balls at you, if you do that, then Corpius's head will never move from the bottom position. However, you have to hit 26 missiles, or 25 if you ended up using a 13th missile on phase 1 by Doppler. And if you miss 26, you lose all the benefits of headlock pretty much in terms of time save. But still here, Scion does thankfully stay behind and be half an atom's worth. He would be a lot more far away if Steve connected from the headlock advantage. However, headlock does still have a single benefit, which is where you don't really have to worry about missing too many. So you get a lot more bang for your buck per missile, per se. So the players are now an entire room apart. They'll be entering the first Emmy zone. You'll notice that there is no Emmy in this zone. That is because the runners skipped the trigger flag for the Emmy by using the early cloak pseudo. to create a shortcut towards this area. We're essentially trying to do Artaria backwards in terms of item completion. Ooh, Steve getting hit by a waterfly there. That's not generally a common error to make. Scion elects to pick up the item tutorial here, so not worry about it later. We'll talk about that later on in the run. Steve hitting first try cloaked Jehudi skip. That one can be a little tricky, especially in this tournament setting. So we'll see as Steve enters the second Emmy zone, we'll see Scion going for cloakless. Oh, nice. Scion also hitting cloaked Jehudi. I almost said cloakless. That one is a lot more difficult. Steve hitting water platform skip on the first try. That one, pretty standard stuff. I'm pretty sure a lot of these runners can do that blindfolded even. It's just a little rhythmic wall jumping. Yep, Scion clears it just fine as well. And now Steve will be the first to get the charge at 408 on touch. Scion just a couple of rooms behind, no big deal. By the time Steve leaves this room, Scion should be touching charge beam. Yep, 421 on the side of Scion. He does jump over the item claw, which means that he'll have to land onto it. So the runners are separated by roughly 12 seconds, if I understand correctly. And now Steve going to slide in here and pick up this E-Tank. I know for a fact that both runners, if not every runner in this tournament, will be picking up this energy tank. Things were different during the qualifiers, but then it was mathematically proven that picking up this energy tank and skipping the Dyren one, should you want to 2-tank this route, is only half a second slower. So there is genuinely no point in skipping this one. We'll see as Scion reattempts the climb. Steve did have a very good climb on the way up. Ooh, gets hit by a bat there, but it does kind of work out because it boosts him above the ledge. Steve going to take this climb and cloak through this door. We normally would not be able to do this early, but because we did Corpius first, we have the Phantom Cloak. That room to the left, the community likes to call it the Jaffe room. Oh no, Scion getting hung up on a cloak door. Let's hope that doesn't happen on this one. Looks like he's going to be fine. And Steve going to touch down on the thermal switch at 5:39 on the dot. Good stuff from both runners so far. I know for a fact that the race will have a lot of twists and turns like this. Both runners are extremely competent, and it's win or go home. Scion touches at 5:56 on the middle. So they are still relatively close.
Uploading data.
Uploading data to Adam for the third time, I think. I honestly forget which Adam this is numerically, honestly. As Steve, while Scion is talking to the third Adam, he is going to be going for a wall jump, much like water platform skip here, by using a melee to space and then buffer a wall jump on the pillar. We call that the Magus skip. That's intentionally with the purpose of getting into that room that he just entered and left. Leaving that room through that door is what spawns the white Emmy. Should you not do this, you will soft lock, because the white Emmy will not be available to be murdered. Why did I use that word? I mean, defeated, I suppose. Be a little more PG about it. You'll notice that Steve is also using missiles on the brain when you could use beams instead. The reason why we do that is because for this CU in particular, mashing for any amount of time with the beam is not substantial compared to raw missiles. Only for this one. For the next one, we'll have the wide beam. Steve getting some pretty good movement up. However, on the first ledge leaving the room, he didn't slide off. So while his movement up was perfect, because his movement down was not... Oh! Oh, and Steve with the clutch parry, but this is exactly what Scion needs. You have only a handful of frames to parry with a broken faceplate. So you have like, wow, or not, I think it's like 90 milliseconds to parry the faceplate, to parry a broken faceplate, or a second parry. So yeah, Steve is now only a couple seconds ahead. 8-minute on Fanfare. Scion's gonna get an 808 on Fanfare. Steve probably feeling a little bit nervous about that. He didn't run all the way to the left. He didn't give enough space for the slide underkill there. So he had to take a bit of a bit of a quick time event on the way in. But it's all good. We did get past the white Emmy, and now both runners will aim to leave Artaria now. Sound having a slightly better room due to strats, but gets hung up on the magnet for a little too long. Steve going for the left side wall climb here. Nails it. The start was a little rocky, though. Looks like Scion is conquering his demons with these cloak doors. Scion also going for the left side, but doesn't hold B on the ledge hop, so he misses the proper wall click on the left wall. Steve now going for the Artaria elevator deboost. Does the 3-ply kill method. Nailed just perfectly. That was beautiful. And now we'll see Scion going to do the same setup here. Does a jump to space the top ply instead of a melee, which is completely fine. And now by the time that Steve hits A on the elevator, Scion will be entering the prompt. Steve is extremely lucky to be ahead, as Taurus does say in chat. This is true. He could easily be 20 seconds behind right now with suffering that white Emmy death. And the specific reason for that is because only for the white Emmy, if you die to it, you have to reopen the door. For every other Emmy, you get checkpointed after the door is already open. Runners now entering Catarus. Steve having a bit of trouble with the platform weave. We'll see if Scion emulates the same trouble. Nope. Scion cuts it early by one weave and melees off the platform. Reasonable. As both participate. Oh my god, Steve with that Atom Mash! Did anyone even get a chance to even perceive Atom there? The Atom Mash is ridiculous. I expect great things from things like the robot fights later. From that mashing. That mashing was spectacular. Or Candy-esque, if I may. Scion turning around a bit to get bonked by the fly a little bit less. I believe that is slower than just tanking it straight up, because the damage boost from tanking it would boost you onto that platform. Meanwhile, Steve heading to this magnet room, the arena for Z57, to approach the super boost, as we call it. Misses the early jump through, but does get the jump anyway. Has to do a wall kick to recover the height. Meanwhile, Scion clears it perfectly. Gains a little bit of time over Steve because of it. Ooh, Scion misses the left Q on the magnet. Steve did that once, and Steve will be dodging the Hell Run. I believe this is because he's at 24 HP with a tank, so any error would result likely in a Hell Run death. Looking for consistency, I suppose, especially after being shaken up by the white Emmy death, or almost death. Ooh! Scion making a decision to back out of the Hell Run. Might not be confident in it. He did stutter a little bit on the blob and on the way in. So both runners will be electing to skip the Hell Run here. However, Scion went into the room before leaving, which means that he's going to incur that amount of time for skipping. The Emmy is in the same spot for both. Fairly low threat, especially if you enter the room a little bit slower, which they both did. And now Steve is going to be weaving beyond these platforms to reach the next area of Catarus, which we just unlocked by using that thermal switch. I would be surprised to see either runner go for Hell Pseudo here. So Steve going to skip out on Hell Pseudo as an 8-second time save trick. However, it's extremely difficult and can easily spiral out of control if you don't land it. Scion getting the right side Emmy spawn, which means that he'll be taking the bottom path here to alert the Emmy sooner. That way it'll stay down there. When the Emmy notices you for even a little bit, think about like Metal Gear, when the Emmys enter the caution phase, pretty much. They stop for a bit, and they scan around to make sure that, they know where Samus is. So if you take the bottom path with the Emmy in the right side of the room, if your movement isn't perfect on the left side, the Emmy will climb up if you take top path, and it'll see you. It'll cause a whole lot of problems. Steve already done with the second switch. Scion taking his time to get up there. We're gonna see Steve attempting Atom Skip, one of the biggest tricks of the run. Saves 2.5 minutes done first try. Here goes. That looks good. Wow, first try from the side of Steve. Let's get some claps in the chat for that one. First try. Now, in Scion's last race against Ednolium, he did have some struggles with Atom Skip. It took him over 10 attempts, if I remember correctly. SpeedGaming with the raid. Welcome on in. We are 13 minutes or so in. Oh, Scion getting Atom Skip first try. I can't even say hi to the raiders. Scion clearing Atom Skip with ease, redeeming himself from his last performance against Ed, but has some trouble with the post-Atom Emmy room. It's alright. Completely fine. We at least got past Atom Skip, so now both runners are beyond the first major equalizer in the run. We're gonna see where Steve did the second switch pseudo. Scion just ignores it and goes for the slide under shot. And now Steve heading down in this Emmy zone. Going to melee over the green Emmy here and clear it with ease. And now he's going to pause for a bit to get the correct timing on the magnet going down, so he can do what we call reverse atom or early zipper. And Scion, now if we recall from his match with Ed, once again, Cataris wasn't really the nicest to him. Not only did he take a long time on Atom Skip, but also he died to this Emmy while jumping over, so we'll see what goes on. Scion did download the melee package here, which is much safer, even though it might not look like it, than jumping over the Emmy. Now Steve picking up the second energy tank of this run. This would be the final E-tank for some of the higher level runners here who don't need a third one to do the rest of the route. However, I would probably guarantee that these runners will be going for 3 at most. There's another energy tank after speed booster in Dyron. Steve having a bit of trouble with the ledges here, but is completely fine as he's in one of the final rooms leaving. You might notice there that when he got hit by the claw, he respawned to the left, because if he didn't do that, he wouldn't have cleared that ledge. So he respins to gain a little bit more airtime and to redirect his momentum further to the left so he can clear that ledge. And now Steve is leaving Cataris with a time of 15:19, I believe, on the A-press. We can time Scion's lead difference there. You'll see there Scion did get the correct deboost from the claw in order to go under the ledge. Looks like the gap between runners is roughly within the span of 24 seconds or so. This is a sizable lead in favor of Steve. However, knowing the route that these runners will be going for, it's not concrete, not even close. Steve having the first step into Dyron. We'll be seeing, I think, we'll be seeing DCA, or the Dyron Club Jump. Don't ask what the A stands for. It's a community thing. It's not Speed Gaming safe. And then he's going to descend into Dyron 1, likely jumping over the Sonic the Hedgehogs that spawn from the ground. Does go for the charged missile on the second one. If he's gonna go for that one, I'm not sure why he doesn't go for the first one. However, I mean, I guess it is RNG based, depending on when it shows up. Scion does skip DCA. That's going to be an automatic time loss in favor of Steve. But again, from the last match we saw between Scion and Ed, Scion didn't really care for these tiny time saves, just in favoring stuff like consistency and being able to get through with ease, not introducing any extra fail conditions or any other difficulty spikes, which is a completely respectable tournament advantage that you can have. Whereas some runners would struggle with the tighter time saves. Runners like Scion just going for the easy stuff, the stuff that might not save those frames, but results in just keeping a consistent pace. As Steve picks up the wide beam while Scion turns the lights on in Dyron 1. And now we'll be seeing the runners after wide go for the Morph Ball upgrade, which is a contentious area for a lot of reasons within the tournament. Steve looks like he had a different variation of this room than most. He took a deboost from, coincidentally, the Steve enemy. We like to call those spiky floating guys Steves for some reason. Took a deboost to get onto a ledge there in the big room. But if it works, it works. Meanwhile, as Steve is leaving Dyron, Scion is going to tackle the big Dyron room. Gets hit by a Steve on the way out. But it doesn't matter. We've got the 2 energy tanks. Energy isn't really an issue for us. As he enters the Emmy zone, Steve is leaving Dyron. Roughly the same amount of time, 25 or so seconds. The race is picking up steam. Someone play some elevator music. You know, there is this one part from a while ago when Keku was running on stage. I believe it was Sefi Hockey who was commentating, and they were told to focus Keku's audio when he was in elevator, and that's because Keku was playing music. I was thinking of doing the same, but I'm not sure what's copyright free at the moment, so I chose not to do it. But I mean, hey. These elevators are a source of respite for us runners. There's a lot of load screens in this game. We can just sit and relax, stretch, take a sip of water. As Steve re-entering a familiar Emmy zone for the 3rd time. But this time he goes left, using the new wide beam that he picked up to open that wide beam door, heading to the home of the green central unit. We'll be seeing him do charge missile strategies here, where this is mildly faster than just using missiles. Gets through it just fine. Scion turning left for a sec, getting hit by a robot seemingly on purpose. It's not really a strategy. In fact, I would say that it just strictly loses time, but it is what it is. We'll see what version of the green Emmy kill Steve goes for. It looks like he's going for the standard kill. This kill looks really scary, but it's actually not. It's probably the safest kill we have. Shoots the faceplate at 1934. Scion, meanwhile, doing the standard Emmy kill where you just shoot missiles as you enter the door. Ooh, greens a little bit on the CU doors. Gonna lose a second to that. Now he's going to leave and do the exact same kill. As Steve picks up the morph ball. Remember, I said 34 on the side of Steve. For Scion, it's 20:03. So that would be 29 seconds now in favor of Steve. So Steve did make up some time just on movement on the way to the morph ball. And now the runners will be heading to pick up their orange pajamas, the Varia suit, way over there in Artaria. It's another complaint from a lot of players regarding Metroid Dread, which is that there are simply too many load screens. But it don't matter. Honestly, I couldn't really care. The suit design in this game is spectacular. Steve picking up the Missile 10 to the right of the red TP. You'll notice that both runners skip these small missile packs. They only give 2, therefore they're inefficient when you can just pick up Missile 10s instead. So I would be surprised if Scion skips this one. The significance of this Missile 10 is that you can have 10 extra missiles for the Kraid fight that comes after Varia suit. And Kraid likes to eat a lot of missiles, especially on unfavorable RNG. So if you pick up this one, you have a lot more security in that fight. There's a lot of skill expression that takes place in the fight as well. Any time lead can swing very quickly, depending on how the runners deal with Kraid. You'll see here, Steve morphs into the tunnels, or before entering them, morphs before entering the tunnels. The reason why we do this is because unlike Scion, who ate the item tutorial in Artaria roughly, I don't know, 3 minutes in or so, Steve did not slide through that 1-block tunnel. If you slide through a 1-block tunnel when you're in a hidden item tutorial box on the minimap, you will incur a 5 to 6 second time loss for free because the game tells you how to detect hidden items. So Steve will be trying to dodge that for the entire run as he enters the Varia climb segment. Meanwhile, Scion going through the vents, trying to get there on his own. Looks like both runners are having some pretty clean movement. Both runners also hitting the cheat shot through that tunnel before climbing in. That allows you to have the door open before you enter the tunnel, which saves a bit of time, so you don't have to open the door while going in. So now the runners are an entire Varia climb separate. This is somewhere within the realm of 30 or so seconds. Scion having a bit of trouble at the beginning, getting hung up on some walls and misses the double shot on those blocks on the way up. So yeah, Scion is definitely bleeding time. Steve had a very solid Varia climb. It's a deceptively difficult segment. There's a lot of little skill checks involved. Meanwhile, Steve leaving the Varia segment, going down back towards the red TP. And as Scion picks up the Varia suit, Steve will be going back to Cataris to challenge Kraid. The big green time waster. The boss that almost nobody likes. Small little reprieve here. You'll notice on the side of Scion as well, there are some melees that he'll do off of ledges to skip other ledges that are below the ones he melees off. If you don't melee off certain ledges, then you don't skip those, which means that you'll have to fall on them, which resets your velocity, of course. So small time saves here and there by meleeing off ledges, or just sliding off ledges as well, to save some frames, sometimes multiple frames. And now Steve is going to intentionally damage boost on his way through the Rocky Mountains, which is what I like to call them nowadays. On his way to Kraid. Whoa, that was really cool. That was really cool. Entering Morph Ball to ball boost off the right side of that Rocky after shooting out the top block. I'm stealing that. That was godlike. And now Scion looking to enter the Rocky Mountains as Steve enters Kraid. He's going to be doing the charged missile strat at the start. This is a pretty difficult maneuver to do on Kraid in particular because his mouth always moves, but it does have the benefit of saving missiles instead of just pelting missiles in. You'll see Steve trying to do these single wall jumps up this wall, missing them at the top twice now. It is a difficult set of inputs to do, but this is exactly what Scion needs to catch up. Steve getting less than favorable RNG as well. Opens with a swipe into a punch, but thankfully, because Steve has the extra missile 10, and also with that phase 1 strategy, his missile count looking really good, and he does leave Kraid at a reasonable amount of time. Scion, meanwhile, not looking to do these single wall jumps. This is why I mentioned that it's good for Scion. Scion should be relatively even, if not slightly ahead of Steve, going up to this Magnet on phase 2. And now we're looking at Scion's RNG here. Opens with Slow Claw as the first attack from phase 2. That's the best one you can get. Oh, but his missile accuracy looking kind of tiresome as Steve. Oh no, Scion takes the Kraid cutscene. So this is a cutscene that you never want to take. When you're in parry animations like these on bosses, you do half the damage that you normally would do. You'll notice there, even though Scion got out a lot of missiles on phase 2, after getting missiles in from the Slow Claw animation, Kraid wasn't defeated at the end of it. So he's gonna lose a lot of time to that by itself. Any time he would have made up from Steve missing those single wall jumps is now gone. It's evaporated. So as Scion gets the diffusion beam and heads to the purple TP, we'll see Steve already leaving on his way back to Dyron 2. He'll be going left here, signifying that he will be doing the early screw variation of no major glitches, the short boost variation. We'll get to that when we get there. For now, let's focus on what's in front of us. Steve getting a favorable Emmy spawn on the yellow Emmy zone. There is a spawn where you can hear the Emmy predominantly in your right ear when you enter. If you get that one, then the Emmy will be directly in your way, and you have to do some clever movement to get around it with the Phantom Cloak as well. But gets through it just fine. You notice that Steve did a single wall jump to circumvent having to go down and around, or to circumvent doing a coyote jump to get above that gap. It's the fastest way through, and it's also one of the best places to practice single wall jumping, actually, because you don't need a particularly good one, you just need one. Scion crossing by the Dyron Atom station. As Steve turns on the lights, the gap between them has increased tremendously since that Kraid fight. Oh, and Scion gets the unfavorable yellow Emmy spawn again. This happened in his match with Ed as well. So we'll see what Scion does to get around the single wall jump time. Oh no, he has to hurry up. The Emmy is hot on his heels and gets through on attempt 3. Well done from Scion. The Emmy will not be a bother for much longer, as he does reach relative safety in this dark room. Meanwhile, Steve picking up the bombs. The gap between the runners is closer to a minute now. Steve playing very, very cleanly so far. as Steve heads towards Berenia. Yes, I agree with Taurus here in chat. Scion looks to be a little bit off his game at the moment. We'll see if he recuperates by the time we reach the middle game. Steve taking these bomb launchers, heading back into the Emmy zone. Thankfully, the yellow Emmy here is a very low threat. Honestly, it could just not exist, and I wouldn't notice it's here. Ooh, Steve getting a beautiful hole-in-one there. We call any morph fall into a tunnel a hole-in-one. Gets it cleanly. There's 2 opportunities to do it, both in the same spot in this run. That was really cool to see. Scion looks like he is roughly 40 or so seconds behind Steve. However, Steve did not have a bad segment here at all on the way to the Berenia elevator. Or the Berenia tram, rather. So it depends on how Scion's movement is going through. It does look like he had a bit of a hiccup on the way out of bombs, but so far his movement does look pretty good. Getting these pivot respins, which is where you turn around before respinning beyond the ledge where you would normally be doing a change of direction in. Save some frames. Steve heading into the depths of Berenia 1 here. Unfortunately, we cannot use the grapple beam since we lack it. And now Steve going to be missiling these claw enemies to get them out of the way. Using their suction, however, to reach places where he normally wouldn't be able to. Cloak slides beyond that ceiling stinger enemy, because otherwise you couldn't dodge it and it would just hit you. Now, as Scion enters Berenia 1, Steve is already halfway over to the flash shift. Going to defeat that Jerry, the green bat, but falls into the tiny moat here. Thankfully gets the correct coyote jump on the way out. Coyote jumps are where you slide off of ledges, and the game allows you to briefly jump off of thin air. Intended mechanic by the devs, in fact. It's even used for an intended sequence break that does not show in this routing for this category. In the other one, though, in the early space route, it does. Now Steve is going to be entering the backdoor flash trick. Now this trick, which looks to be done perfectly on the side of Steve. Oh, but he does touch the flash door on the way out. He'll have to answer to the receptionist on this door, just waiting for entry, unfortunately. Backdoor flash is a trick where you do a series of infinite bomb jumps to trick the flash door into believing that you're no longer there, and you can use it to enter the flash shift backwards. It saves 8 seconds in a category where you have grapple beam, since there is a shortcut you can take with the grapple beam. However, since we don't have it in this routing, it would save 30 to 40 seconds, which is why it's pretty much mandatory. Steve going for the Berenia pseudos with the crouch turnaround pause buffers, which is really good to see. The fastest variations of these pseudos. Gets the perfect pseudos on both ends. Really well done from Steve. Those pauses are very short in timing, which means he's optimized them very, very well. Scion now going to be taking his crack at backdoor flash. Oh, looks like he got a bit of a rocky start, but he's going to try to fix it. I definitely would have reset my attempts, just like now. And he, unlike Steve, did not touch the flash door. So he's going to make up a bit of time in terms of result. However, remember that Scion did not get it first try, unlike Steve, who did. So the fact that the flash door closed on Steve doesn't do anything against him in this case, regarding the context of the race. We'll see what strategies Scion uses to get through this Berenia, the fish tank, or whatever you want to call it. Looks like he is not going for the Berenia pseudos, which means that Steve is automatically going to make up a ton of time. Just a couple of seconds or so compared to Scion, who will be taking out these blobs manually. Meanwhile, Steve gonna be going through the yellow Emmy zone here. On the way up to the yellow CU, Scion debuting the first instance of the water bomb jump on his side. We'll get to that after this boss fight from Steve, where he'll also be using the charged missile strats on the CU shell. For this CU in particular, it does save roughly 2 seconds, done perfectly. The attempt from Steve did not look too bad. So he'll be saving somewhere less than that, but definitely saving some time. And now we're going to be seeing Steve do the easiest enemy kill in the game, in my opinion, as long as you don't mess up, which is where you just sit here and aim at the gap. And you can honestly just not change your aim here, and the enemy just dies. So earlier when we were talking about the water bomb jump that Scion used to skip having to go up to the left and around in the fish tank. If you bomb jump on the ground in the water, and then when you're rising before you land unmorph, you can actually do air bomb jumps after that by morphing in the air, or in the water in the air, I suppose. To get height from a bomb jump you normally would not be able to do. We're going to use that later as well, particularly after the before the screw attack upgrade and before the ice missile upgrade. I'll be sure to point them out when we get there. Meanwhile, Steve picking up the speed booster as Scion enters the yellow CU fight. And now, for any runner who is in the know, you know what's coming in 2 splits. I will be explaining that when we get there, or on the way there, after the grapple beam, which is the immediate split next. Steve going to up spark through here in Morph Ball. If you don't do it in Morph, you'll get this really slow cutscene, unfortunately. So we Morph Spark there. Steve gonna take the 3rd energy tank and also go for the Sonic Orochi speed keep here. Very well done. So nailing this speed keep all the way, and the fix you have to do to open those speed blocks he just went under, saves 40 frames. It's a relatively new strat that Sonic Orochi devised. And 40 frames is close to a second. It's a lot of time. So as Steve re-enters Artaria for one of many times, but I think this is the last time we enter Artaria, Sion's going to be picking up the speed booster. Going to try to catch up to Steve here. And before Steve reaches the split, he'll be taking a pit stop at Grapple Beam. This is why, compared to the early space routing, we save the Grapple Beam for later in the route because it's right here. Might as well not what is it? What's the word? Detour. Right, that's the word. To get the Grapple Beam when we can just get it here. Steve getting a speed booster by the skin of his toes. And up sparks to reach this room here. And to the right of this room is the Grapple Beam. Now as Scion, speed keeps in a different variation, not going for the Sonic Orochi speed keep. We'll be talking about the trick coming up. So there's a trick coming up called the Screw Attack Short Boost. The bane of many NMG players, whatever. I don't know the full idiom there, honestly. But bane of existence, maybe. I don't know. So what this trick is, it's a backwards flash canceled by hitting down and back, and then you hit forward sometime after the cancel, and Samus runs backwards forwards. It's weird to say, but as the game tries to push Samus to where the full flash distance would be, she's allowed to walk forward during it, which means that during that backwards movement, we can charge a speed booster, which allows us to get speed in shorter distances than normal. Unfortunately, in these conditions, it's really hard to do, because it's really cold in here, and there's a grapple door, and the spacing's really bad. So we'll see how Steve does with the Screw Attack Short Boost. A lot of runs in this tournament have died to this trick. As Scion heads for the Grapple Beam, if Steve gets this quickly, it could spell disaster for Scion, who would have to respond. So we'll see. Steve going for his first attempt at the Screw Attack Short Boost. Misses the ledge, but that's no big deal. He's full HP. Oh, that... Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Let's see if he connects it all the way. Steve gets first try Short Boost. So now the onus is on Scion to respond with a Short Boost just as good. Otherwise, the delta would simply be too large, more than it already is. That is spectacular. I wonder where Steve is compared to his PB at the moment. First try Short Boost is not a common occurrence. So here, Steve's going to do an out-of-water bomb jump, which is where you place the bomb on the edge of the water and then jump into it. And if you do it correctly, your morph ball will be out of the water, so you don't obey water physics. Scion here. Oh, he's gonna go for one trip. He's gonna do a pause buffer method to get the one to get his bearings here. You'll notice the difference in technique between both runners. Steve did the short boost completely unbuffered, which is a faster method with dubious differences in consistency. Meanwhile, Scion going to be doing the pause buffer method. Now, the issue with the pause buffer method is that not only is it slower, but also you move all the difficulty, do these frame perfect pause unpauses. However, Scion gets a third try, redeeming himself from his earlier match with Adnolium. He even does the blobless variation, where you don't destroy the blob before entering. Now, if only that was first try, he would have saved a ton of time over Steve, just because of the blobless version, but gets a third try. The delta has grown against Scion. As Steve enters the yellow TP back into Dyron, Scion is going to be getting the screw attack. So we'll be able to see their difference in timing at some point soon. Unless someone in chat wants to do it. Scion does get out of their third try, though. Yeah, exactly as Ed says, that's a huge relief. It always sucks to see either of the runners get holed up on short boost for too long. It's happened to pretty much everybody at some point, whether it's in race or just in PB attempts. You'll notice there Steve has the speed booster to break those blocks that are blocking off access to Ferenia. That is the other piece of the puzzle required to save the 40 frames from the Sonic Orochi speed keep earlier. Scion did not opt to do the SO speed keep, which means that he doesn't have to worry about that. Now Scion going to get a pretty clean speed keep, up spark all the way through. Going to be heading to the yellow TP himself, but the gap has grown tremendously. We're looking at a minute and 20 seconds or so, from what I understand. Maybe a minute and 25. Steve entering Ferenia for the first time. Probably going to look to speed. Yep, he's going for the Quiet Rope entry speed keep, or the QR speed keep. Looks like he's hung up a bit. He's not going to get it. Alright, he knew, so he stopped. Bit of a knowledge check on the side of Steve here. Doesn't do missiles, but does get a really good grapple boost to recover. And now he's going to enter the Quiet Rope boss fight. This is one of the main reasons why the runners are electing to do the screw attack, early screw attack variation of the route. Not only is it faster to get screwed now and not later, but also it trivializes bosses like these robots. You can just spam your B button on them. Now, both runners doing their own speed keeps here. Steve, great stuff from Steve. Doesn't get hung up by any of the walls. Does the left side version of that room, which is slightly faster. And as Steve exits Ferenia, Scion will be entering. So, a small pseudo high five here. Yeah, we skip a ton of loads by not having to enter Ferenia for the 19 millionth time. Or enter Artaria for the 16 billionth time. And get this. I could frame this on my wall, honestly. I love seeing like the one Samus going up and the other going down. Aesthetic. And now Steve gonna be heading into Berenia too. Putting Dyron behind him forever. Ooh, Scion missing the QR speed keep. When he entered the tunnel, he looks like he pressed B one too many times, which means that it buffers the input for a Shine Spark when you fully morph into the tunnel. Ooh, Steve hits the flash chain there. Ooh, that's a different flash chain I never really considered. I wonder if that's any faster. But it is really cool. Ooh, Steve missing the second hole-in-one on the way to Berenia. No big deal, though. And Scion making quick work of that robot. Going to be heading up the same way that Steve did earlier. Takes the right side. And now another set of load screens. We'll see the load screen here and the load screen there. Different ones. One for a tram, one for an elevator. Fun fact. Runners have discovered that there are certain instances where you'll literally get the wrong type of load screen sometimes. I've gotten a load screen for a teleporter when I entered the tram before. I don't get it. As Steve enters Berenia 2, you'll notice here he does the top route over the E part, trying to get a speed keep. This is because we didn't open the grapple shortcut in Berenia 1. It's slower to go there again to open it, so you might as well just take the top route with the speed booster and try to go for a speed link. Scion taking a slower route through to Berenia 2. I didn't really notice this. I wonder why he does this. This route is much slower. Much slower than the standard route that Steve took. Meanwhile, Steve going to be attempting Dragaiga skip, Water Spore Spawn skip with DT slide pseudos. The second shot looks like it was a little too high, but he does correct it. Gets the correct grapple boost up the Steve tower. And we'll see that as Steve is leaving Berenia to go to Gavarin, Scion will be stepping over some ledges on the way to Berenia himself. Has to be comfort, true. But it's a routing change, and honestly, I think that the fastest route is the easiest. Because there's no enemies there to tell you to, like, you know, buzz off. Meanwhile, Scion had to store and try to spark through a giant robot. I mean, like, bit of a difference there, no? But here we have a repeat, where Steve is going up an elevator while Scion is going left on a tram. It was backwards before. Steve going to be doing a speed booster up this slope to avoid having to climb that giant magnet ceiling. And he's going to be looking to defeat the spider and then speed booster into the next room so we can shine spark a robot. You'll see here Scion on the right side taking that grapple shortcut I talked about skipping before. Steve making very quick work of that robot. Now you might ask, isn't this robot later than the other one in Ferenia? Why does it take less screw attacks? Well, that's because when you shine spark a boss, you can either do no damage, half of its health, or all of its health. The robots, in fact, take half of their health. So we cut like 5 screw attack bonks by shine sparking it instead. And now as Scion attempts Dragaiga skip, which is giving him some trouble actually, Steve is going to pick up these super missiles, the pocket cucumbers, the pocket nukes even. I like to call them pocket nukes. They are so satisfying to fire. Looks like Steve's having a pretty good run so far, barring some minor errors such as that one. Easily forgiven in a setting like a tournament setting. Ooh, has a bit of trouble. He tried to jump off of the magnet and morph at the same time to enter the tunnel without having to climb into it, but his inputs were a little too shaky. So he bounced off the ceiling before approaching the tunnel. And he's going to be entering the DLC area, Elon, as Scion enters Gavarin to do pretty much the same thing. Ooh, Scion holds left to open the door before the grapple attaches. We've all been there before. Everyone has been there before. I doubt anyone has not done that at some point with multiple hours into the game. Now Scion going to do the same strat on this robot, where we shine spark it to remove half its health and then just dump 5 screw attacks. Ooh, Scion missing that grapple boost up to the other side of that magnet. Has a bit of trouble, but recovers just fine. And while Steve entering Elon, my least favorite area in this route, it genuinely offers nothing except for getting the plasma beam, which we'll see in a bit. But you'll notice in these areas too, specifically 2 rooms from now, with a lot of the black X-Warrior, X-Chozo enemies, like that one, and a certain electric blob, Steve is going to be looking to morph before entering these tunnels. This is because, if you can see on the minimap, there is a white rectangle on the minimap. So if you call back to the item tutorial that we explained earlier when they were leaving red TP to go to Varia, same logic. Really, really annoying zone to do quickly. Now, Scion is going to be leaving the super missiles to go to Elon as well. Scion, that looks intentional at this point. That's the second time he's done it. I'm not sure why he does that when he could just charge beam the bugs as Steve did and then grapple up, but I don't know. And we're going to be entering the Elon Warrior fight here. Now, Steve did show very strong mashing on his atoms. And it does look like he's making very quick work of the warriors. Oh, but Steve gets unfavorable RNG. You basically never want the warrior to jump, ever. Pretty much. That way you can keep the warrior grounded and mash away to your heart's content. Steve getting a pretty good kill regardless, and he's going to leave the arena. The runners are going to high five here, but they're not going to high five in the traditional way. If both runners get a cutscene that skips them to the next part, which means that they don't really high five, but they did technically high five, so we'll call it one. As Scion ascends to Elon to reach the Plaza meme, much like Steve did. And remember, Scion does not have to worry about item tutorial because he didn't preserve it, which means that he can just slide through these, saving time. Or not really saving time, since not triggering the item tut is what saves time. Ooh, and Steve one-shots the final boss of Elon, the Gav Elon cutscene. Very well done from Steve. I think I've lost the collective total of like 8 seconds to that thing across all the tournament and the qualifiers. Steve going to be going for one of my favorite speed keeps of all time, as Scion also does the other speed keep that I love, which is post-plasma speed keep and enter Gav from Elon speed keep, or the Gav Elon speed keep as I call it. Doesn't connect it all the way. Meanwhile, Scion does and gets the Shine Spark at the door. And now we're going to see another very critical water bomb jump here. This is so we don't have to get the spin boost or do another difficult speed keep called the glitchless early ice speed keep. We do a water bomb jump there instead. Scion making very quick work of the warrior on his end. And Steve looking to Shine Spark. Oh, Steve misses the Shine Spark on the central unit. And looks like he's going to have some trouble getting another speed booster. Oh no, this is not good. He doesn't know the spacing, and instead of just missiling the CU, he's going to checkpoint. I don't agree with that. I would just be missiling the CU here. But looks like he's going to get it back. And now we're going to screw attack the brain to one-shot the brain. But that's like 30 seconds disappeared into Narnia. So for ScionVyse, he's no longer as far behind as he used to be. He's still a significant amount behind, but that is unfortunate. Steve cashing in on the fact that he opened up the door above the blue Emmy CU room. That way the Emmy will show up earlier up top, as we see here. Scion also one-shotted the Gav Elon cutscene, and now he'll be going for the Gav Elon speed keep. We'll see if Scion can fully connect it. Ooh, doesn't let go of the shot late enough. That's why I've taken to doing the charge release on that speed keep recently. Very well done from Scion, but he does take a slight time loss here by upsparking. It feels good to do, but it's not better. And at this point in a tournament where we're reaching the higher echelons of the Mawkin bracket, any decision like this could spell time loss, and doing it enough could spell magnitudes of time loss. Steve leaving the ice missiles here. I'm going to be heading to the green teleporter towards Berenia for the final time to pick up the gravity suit. Meanwhile, Scion aces that CU fight. So now it's confirmed Scion did make up like 30 minutes. 30 minutes, oh my gosh, 30 seconds. Now, if Steve took 30 minutes to do the ice missile CU, I would check for collusion. But it's 30 seconds, no worries. Yeah, if he reset checkpoint right after he missed the spark, then I get it. But definitely not after giving attempts and then resetting. You might as well have missiled the guy from the start. Yeah, 30 minutes of time save for sure. I apologize for that slip. Maybe I want to say 30 minutes because if Scion could save 30 on this segment, we would have not only a new world record holder, but also probably the biggest discovery in all of Metroid Dread. You know, 30-minute time save out of nowhere. Steve going to be going for the I think this is the first intended sequence break we're seeing in this route, which is the early gravity speed keep. Gets through it perfectly. He's going to skip that missile 10 because he got the 1 before Kraid, so there's no reason to get this one. You want at least 50 going into the final boss, Ravenbeak. The everything skip for sure. Ooh, Steve not getting the lucky bounce on the diffusion blobs, so he has to do 5 charge shots, or 6 in his case, on these blobs. If you can do it in 3, we call them the god blobs. He misses them, unfortunately. Now, as Steve enters the gravity suit holding center, Scion will be entering the green teleporter to go to Berenia. Now, Steve picks up the best suit in the game. Yeah. References to Link to the Past in chat. Fortunately, I don't know much about LTTP. I've never played it. Maybe I should at some point. But I have a lot of Zelda games to play anyway in backlog. Nothing interesting going here for now. Steve's going to be pivoting on the Atom platform to do a speed keep here. Picks up these missiles. It's annoying to skip these, which is why we don't get the ones earlier. We'll get the ones now. And speed boosters up, or shine sparks up the shaft instead of having to do a very long and tedious bomb jump. I mean, speaking of, we have to do an IBJ, a long and tedious bomb jump to get up that area. But here, Steve's goal is to keep the robots up on the same platform, but misses the correct the correct method there. Scion acing early gravity on his end, which is good to see. Bit of a knowledge difference there from Steve. I would not have switched to screw attacking when I'm so close to the ledge. The chance to fall off the ledge is way too high if we do that. Ooh, Scion here getting the God Blobs. Very nice, but he didn't recognize that he got the God Blobs, so he did an extra shot anyway. Bit of a knowledge check, yet again. When you get the God Blobs, that's how you know your run is blessed, but Scion, spitting in the face of fortune, says, I'm gonna shoot another one anyway. Hopefully that does not come back to bite him. As Scion picks up the burgers, the pancakes, whatever you want to call them. The gravity suit. Best suit design of all time? Question mark. And now, Steve re-entering Gavarin. For the final time, going to be heading up to the giant crab boss that we affectionately don't call Golzuna. We call him anything else, because we hate him. But we'll see how Steve deals with this fight. Doesn't speed booster into the tunnel, which saves a tiny bit of time. But looks like, oh, he ran way too early. Oh, he didn't! So as San is messing up the IBJ up the shaft here, he's putting his bomb to... Oh my god. Oh gosh. Oh god. Excuse me. Ugh. As Scion misses those IBJs, Steve making very light work of Golzuna here. That strat isn't the easiest. Meanwhile, Scion not having the best of times with the Berenia bots. Looks like he didn't employ correct strategies either for speed. So this fight almost takes twice as long doing it this way. The flapjacks. Yep, you are old, Ed. I'm sorry. I kid. He and I are great friends. But this guy, flapjacks? Who calls pancakes flapjacks anymore, Ed? We're in 2022, nearing 2023. Except for the show. The show is good. Small bit of reprieve here. True. It is Ed's birthday on Monday. Let's give a happy birthday to him. He did recently drop out of the tournament against Scion, unfortunately. But as a tiny ode to his great performance that he put up on stage, let's give him a warm happy birthday. How about that? Scion going for the figure 8 variation of the Golzuna kill. Nails the first spark. Good. Meanwhile, Steve doing a DT grapple to get through Anubia in a very in a much better way using a shortcut. Scion nails the 4 spark. Now, unlike his last Golzuna fight against Ed, he actually has a much better Golzuna fight this time. Vod says that flapjacks are more nostalgic. Yeah, but what the heck is a flapjack? I kid. Steve now entering Ferenia, solidly ahead of Scion. 2 load screens or so ahead. This is at least 1:30, if I would assume. Now Steve going to speed boost across this room so you can open that door for later. That door holds the key to space jump, but since we need storm missiles to go from that way and get it, we might as well get storms now. Well, we don't need storms, but it's faster to have storms to do it. Steve doing a little jump there, even though the Emmy isn't in the way. The jump that he did is only if the Emmy is on the right side of the room, which you can tell while you're speeding in. Ooh, Steve letting go of the grapple a little early. Loses a bit of time. I'm not sure how that initial diffusion shot didn't hit the door, but it is what it is. Scion going to Shine Spark across the giant bridge in Hanubia, which we glossed over since we were talking about flapjacks for some reason. My fault. As Steve going to head down to the storm missiles, or the SQ fight. We'll see how he handles this fight. Cross-bombing up to reach the correct level with SQ. Oh, and misses the pogo. This means that he's not going to get a solid 2-cycle on the Corax. Wants to keep this the Corax in the middle of the room if possible, much like Metroid Fusion, where you can keep the Corax in the middle and then collect the major upgrades sooner. The sweet spot, as we call it. But it's alright. Missing the pogo, it is what it is. And now he's going to be going towards the super, oh my gosh, the space jump. I almost said super missile jump. If only we had rocket jumping in this game, somehow. That would be kind of nice. I mean, it will be entirely useless, because you'll get the jump upgrades, but hey. Scion also opening the door early. Now Steve, he's pre-charging the storms because of these storm locks, so great awareness. And now he's going to do a little pivot here and speed out of the room so he can keep a Shine Spark into these robots. Give 3 storm locks onto the yellow warrior, or the yellow robot, and just annihilate it. The storm lock variation does do more damage to the yellow robot, but does not start piercing damage on the gray robot. So it depends on which you prefer more. Now Steve has to leave this room quickly, or else the door will close on him, and he has to go down and around. So we'll see how he does. His Aeon gauge is halfway full. Alright, gets out just fine. Turn our attention back to Scion here, because Scion will be entering the SQ fight. We'll see if he has a better fight than Steve, who missed Pogo and Two-Face. 1, 2, 3, Pogo stick. There it is. 1, 2. Perfect SQ fight from the side of Scion. Oh, but doesn't keep the Corax in the middle of the room and also has trouble screw attacking it, which means that the 2-cycle might as well not have existed. Steve, meanwhile, heading into the final Emmy zone of Ferenia. He's going to be going towards the Wave Beam. This might be a familiar room to some of you, with certain axis skews off of the purple Emmy, if you've seen Metroid Dread speedruns way back when. Oh, but this time Steve does not miss the Insta-Spark on the purple CU, which is really nice to see. And he's going to just head out and commit yet another Emmy homicide. It's always satisfying to defeat these annoying robots, for sure. They sit here in a lot of these rooms just being obstacles and stalking you, and then you get to just systematically remove them one by one. It's cathartic. Scion now going to be, unlike Steve, who did storm missiles, piercing all the way through to defeat both robots in roughly the same time. And Steve is going to be doing one of the more difficult variations of the purple Emmy kill, where you shoot the faceplate while it's leaving the tunnel. You can only miss 4 beam shots while doing that. 4 of those really tiny beam shots. You'll see that Scion Shine Sparked into this room as opposed to flash shifting in. The Shine Spark version is slower, but it's extremely easy since all you need to do now is hold right and mash A. Just like that. And now Steve picks up the Wave Beam at 103.17 fanfare. Someone remember that, 103.17. We'll see when Scion picks it up to see how far away he is. However, by the time Steve starts the warrior fight for the power bombs, I feel like that's when Scion's going to be leaving Wave Beam. The gap seems very wide in favor of Steve here, way too far. So at this point, Steve would have to commit an unholy miracle in favor of Scion, which is dying to Ravenbeak or Gold Chozo. We will see. Scion not getting the instant spark on the CU shell, losing just a second because he has to store. And now Steve entering Hanubia, leaving the rest of ZDR for the final time, going to the top of the planet in Hanubia, where we will see 2 Chozo warriors and then a calm trip to Iterash, where we'll find our father and show some teenage rebellion. Even though Samus is a fully grown adult, honestly. Scion going to go for a slightly easier version of a purple Emmy quick kill here, which is very, very consistent, but much slower than the kill that Banana Steve chose to do. And now Steve going to be, you'll notice he's using storm missiles on these warriors. That's because storm missiles do a ton of damage. And just mashes his heart out on the warriors here. Beams are much better on warriors than missiles, which is why you'll see Steve mashing a ton to get rid of these guys. And now we'll see here, like I mentioned, by the time Steve enters and receives power bombs, Scion's just going to be leaving the wave beam. They are now a full segment separate. This is within the realm of 2 minutes. So earlier I said 103.17. Scion got it at 105.21 or so. So yeah, we're looking at 2 minutes and 4 seconds or so. This gap is nearly insurmountable. Steve would have to take a very bad death in the later stages of Ravenbeak to lose the race here. But the thing is, at this level, it's inconceivable for a runner to lose to Ravenbeak. Militant Pacifist in chat mentioning the cursed words Metroid, Prime, and 4 in the same sentence. Did you know that every time someone mentions Prime 4, the development is delayed by a year? As Steve breaks the glass bridge with the powerbomb, we've seen that in many Metroid games in the past, and up sparks through. We're gonna see him tackle the Elite Chozo Warrior, or the Golden Chozo, or the Chicken Nugget, or the Popeyes, or the KFC, whatever you want to call it. Going to be doing storm missiles in between attacks here. You'll notice he takes very great care to not get hit by this one in particular. This is because the Golden Chozo Warrior does % health damage, in fact. So any hit from this guy is nearly lethal. Yep, Carter Freak, another participant in this tournament, does confirm that I also said the words, but I said them to inform the masses that you shouldn't say them. Otherwise, we'll get the game in another 20 years. No. Pop quiz. How many species does Samus comprise of? Because at the end of Dread, Samus is like a petri dish of every species in the galaxy. Oh man. I like that answer from Sadyu. The answer is yes. That's true, it's true. Steve entering Iterash, about to talk to Ravenbeak about why the curfew is so early and how she wants to go out with her friends. Meanwhile, Scion blowing up everything in Hanubia, except for everything. Only certain floors with things that we call the power bombs for some reason. Ooh, Scion does not get power bombs from the robots that he wanted to shoot out. But we'll ignore what Sion's doing for the time being, because it's just movement. Steve now heading into Ravenbeak, going to be using crossbombs and missiles to transform the Aeon shield around Ravenbeak from blue to red. And now he's going to release some storm missiles and mash his heart out. Nice. We transitioned beyond phase 1. We've skipped the gold phase of the shield, where Ravenbeak doesn't take damage. We call it doing gold skip. Steve getting very favorable RNG here. Using the wall and the Gatling gun, you'll see here, Steve can pretty much dodge the entire attack and just sit there and shoot. Scion entering the gold Chozo. Gets 3 Stormlocks there on the way through. He's going to be going for the same shield skip that Steve did. Notice that Scion takes very good care to not get hit to avoid death. Scion now going to revert to mashing. Steve has a very, very strong phase 2. Heads into phase 3 now, where he'll get slightly unfavorable RNG. Gets a sun attack. You can only remove the sun by doing a power bomb, which is why that we do it. And we have the parry here that Steve is going to deny. You do not want to get that parry later on in the fight, unless you're out of missiles, because you take the parry cutscene intentionally on the earlier times in the fight, but in later times of the fight, you don't want to get the parry, since it'll overlap with Ravenbeak's health going to 0. Speaking of which, Ravenbeak's health is now at 0. At this point in time, as Scion enters Eaterash to ask RB about why she can't have a boyfriend, Steve is going to be exiting the planet. So, very, very soon, we'll be declaring a winner in this race. Props to Steve for having an excellent run. Second try short... Wait, was it first? Yeah, first try short boost. Unfortunately lost 30 seconds to the blue CU, but this race is in his hands. As Steve begins the escape. Not much to say about the escape, it's just a straight shot to the end, using the hyper beam that you see here to break every available destructible block to remove them from our sight. Scion going to head up to Ravenbeak now, getting much more favorable phase 1 RNG to instantly go to red wave phase. Scion going to lock twice and then resort to mashing to skip the gold phase. Very well done from Scion, and now we'll see what Ravenbeak... Oh, Scion going for a very early wall strap, but again, I mentioned this a while ago regarding Scion. He likes to wiggle back and forth before doing the melees to dodge the Gatling. You don't need to do that. So I'm not. Maybe he didn't watch the VOD earlier when I was talking about it in his match versus Ed. But hey, it is what it is. Steve up sparks. He jumps twice beforehand to avoid a cinematic cutscene for that up spark. Instant sparks to the left, stores it here, and we will be crowning a winner of this match right now with a time of 1:11:31. And we have a winner. Let's return our attention to Scion's perspective. Scion getting... I'm not sure how early that one was, but we got one anyway. Looks like it was a late parry. And now Scion going to be entering the escape after Ravenbeak. This was a pretty strong race from both runners. I believe, in my opinion, the major difference between the two run times we see here is baseline skill. They both did excellently on the tricks. First try Adam, first or third try short boost. What more could you ask for? Right? Steve showing that he is the better player fundamentally. But seriously, GG's on this race. We're going to be seeing one more escape from the side of Scion here. My Scion also uses the Hyper Beam to blitz his way through the escape. Let me ask Chad a question. I ask this usually every time I try to be on commentary. What flavor do you think the Hyper Beam is? Some of you may have noticed or remembered that I asked this question before. But like, what like candy flavor do you think this Hyper Beam is? It reminds me of sour cherry, which I don't like, but like, you know, birthday cake from VOD. Watermelon, strawberry. Am I the only person who thought of sour cherry? Maybe I'm a little bit kooky. Who knows? Just bro with the candid response. Ozone. Yep. As Scion looking to shine Spark out of the escape with a final time of 1:14.03. GG's to both runners. We're going to look to get them in for post-game commentary in a moment. GG's to both runners. Let me mark that. And now we should be returning to ambient video game music. Oh no. Yeah, there it is. All right. And we'll get them both in here for commentary. Welcome in, Steve and Scion. GG's on your runs.
GG's.
All right. GG's. I'd like to forward a hand towards Steve. Steve here showing a very strong performance. Moving on in the losers bracket. Hanging on to survival. Unfortunately, Scion, you will be dropping out of the tournament after some strong showings. So I'll ask you first, how do you feel about your run? And how do you feel about being free from short boost, finally?
I'm looking forward to taking a break. But yeah, honestly, the run wasn't too bad, all things considered. Like 2 weeks ago, this would have been a PB, so nice. I'm not too upset about it. I'm really just happy to put on a better showing than what happened between me and Ed. That's really... my biggest thing.
I did mention before your Adam attempts and before your short boost attempts, I was like, I wonder what's gonna happen now because of what happened in his last match, and then you nailed Adam and third try short boost. So yeah, I definitely applaud you for showing up much better this time around.
I'm a lot happier with this run than I was with most of my other runs in this tournament.
Oh man. Steve, as the winner, you are moving on, like I mentioned earlier. How do you feel about the quality of your run and how that will influence your matchups going forward?
Honestly, surprised I got a 1:11.33. There's so many moments I just felt like, wow, that's a mistake. Wow, that's a mistake. And, you know, somehow messed up headlock Corpius. I don't know how. I mean, you know.
It happens. When it does happen, though,
yeah,
not good for sure.
Yeah.
I also noticed you had a bit of a struggle with Blue CU, as well as taking a checkpoint to reset the spark. How did that feel? Because I would definitely feel a little bit choked up after that.
I mean, I don't know. After that, I was just like, whatever. This is already kind of not a good run in my eyes. I didn't think it was going to be a 1:11, honestly, but it ended up being it, so...
yeah, for sure. These runners have been improving tremendously over the last couple of weeks. Steve, in particular, I've been taking a very close eye on him, since I do think he'll break through eventually to the upper echelon, like the top. Very, very sure. Steve has been playing out of his mind recently, and seeing him 110, 109 at some point, it's going to be very nice to see. Follow that, and follow the runners for sure. Let me plug the runners right now, actually. Follow these runners, and join the Discord where they do talk frequently about Dread in general, join some conversations about NMG in particular, and they're just great people all around. Speaking more about the tournament, moving forward, Steve, you will be matched up against the winner between Gala and Ross, and if you scale over them, you'll be meeting Oopla in Losers Round 5. How do you feel about your prospects?
I think if I have to play Gala, that no disses on Oopla. Oopla's great, but I think, at least from what I know, Gala has better times than Oopla. So I'm a little more. I would be a little more worried about that one.
Yeah,
But still, it's a hard road.
it is. Not only if Gala does win, you have to fight one French powerhouse, and then if you scale that, you got to go for another one.
I just got to take out the French people, I guess.
and then honestly, if you do beat both, you're against B-Dog.
Yeah. Like,
I want to know how you feel
shot.
about that.
No shot. But
B-Dog,
I'd try. So
yeah, B-Dog is considered the best runner of all time, the Michael Jordan of this game, should we say.
absolutely.
So it's going to be
for
very,
sure.
very dangerous, especially since B-Dog in Losers is not something anyone expected, much less himself. He is angry. Very,
Yeah,
very
saw him-
angry.
Saw him streaming for 107s, and I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah. So that's going to be just fine, I think. Show your best, Steve. We're all rooting for you. Even if we want certain runners to win the tournament, that does not mean we're looking away from the ones that unfortunately drop as a result of that rampage that runners like B-Dog and Arc are stampeding through the brackets on. Any other comments from either of you? Any words you want to say to each other, to chat, to SpeedGaming?
No, just GG's. It was a fun race.
For sure.
Yep, both runners putting on an excellent show today. Scion, enjoy your well-deserved break.
Can't wait.
From is it from the category or is it from Dread in particular?
Mostly the category.
What are you gonna go next?
Maybe I may do some glitchless stuff for a while.
Nice.
I'm sick of glitches, you know.
I mean, listen, unrestricted is kind of cool. You wanna-
I know.
Cool to
I
look
thought
at.
about it.
It's cool to look at. For
It
sure.
is cool to look at. Yeah.
I was doing some PB attempts today. Nah, it didn't work. Unrestricted is a typhoon of failures, but yeah, definitely a good showing for both of you. I know that Scion just said something. Steve, you got anything else?
No, just GG's all around.
All right. Then I will be signing us off. GG's to Steve and Scion. Good luck to Steve as he moves forward to meet the winner of Gala and Arcool or Ross. And I personally will be just sitting here waiting, commentating a couple matches on the way. Since I am in the winner's side of Grand Finals, I'll be waiting to see who I'm against in 8 more matches. I have so long to wait. And with that said, this is Sat commentating again the match between Steve and Scion, and we will see you next mission.
See you later.
See ya.